This is a twofer. It's a pretty cool twofer. Let's see what this twofer is. Welcome back to the McGolf Fitting Room. Jim McCleary, and we have an exchange of iron shafts. All right, I've been going through this change in the fitting room by the connector, and this connector has caused me to evaluate what we are keeping in the lineup. We've increased our lineup. Now we have 4 manufacturers that on the heads. We have Callaway, Wilson, Srixon, and Mizuno. I think we've got it covered. I think it'll do a lot of good for a lot of folks. Good stuff across the board, drivers on down. So I'm good with that. With the other side of the connector is the shaft. You know, KBS has always been a staple that's been in our group, and we've brought on Nippon, which has been a real plus. I just haven't got into their graphite yet because I have this new offering from ACCRA. And it's not necessarily new, it's the I series. It's an updated. They've had the I series as far as I can remember. Now in the ACCRA lineup, you have the I series is their beginning model, the FX, which is their middle tier model, and which I really like. And then they have their Tour line, which is Tour Z's and stuff. It only applies itself to the driver shafts and fairway woods. So there's basically constant weights and I series that we have in the irons. And why is that? Because these things start from 40 gram and 10 gram increments and go all the way up to 110. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So a lot to go through, right? So when I say twofer, what is all this about? Well, when we get new stuff, we got to hit it, right? So let's go hit some. So while we're hitting some of these things, what we're really testing is we have grams versus flex. As a whole, when you hit a lower weight club or lower weight shaft per se, typically it's going to be a more flexible shaft. So a 40-50 is going to be very, very flexible in comparison to a 90 and 100 or a 100 and 110. Yes, the profiles are going to change just because of the amount of weight that you're adding to them. Now, does it change a dramatic amount? Not so much, but it just becomes a little bit more stiff, a little bit more heavy, and then except for the I series, or the 90s and the 100s become what they call a tour model and have a little bit more reinforcement at the bottom. And yes, then the profile changes. Well, you saw me as I was just hitting some, and what I was doing is I was going between all the numbers, right? They have a 40. I didn't hit the 40 because I was afraid of breaking it, right? It's not made for somebody with a really high swing speed, and they come with a little warning label on it, so I didn't want to, well, break it, right? And did I think I would? No, not necessarily, but I didn't want to chance it since I just got it. So there we go. So what we wanted to do. So what is the idea of the test? The test here is you get to see what well, it's actually a threefer when we come to think about it. We have weight relates to flex, and then the golf ball, right? Everybody gets on me about the golf ball. And because I use range balls most of the time now, and you guys brought up a good point, and I kind of changed my way of thinking on it. So what I do is I have range balls that I use for guys getting warmed up, and I use it for my length testing because the length of the shot is not the length that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the length of the club. And all I'm looking for is impact positions. Now, it's apples and apples, not apples and oranges when I use all the same stuff. and then we can even tell whether it not be your right length, but you still will hit it better. Then I wanted to see, did it really make a difference? Do the range balls, are they really that different than the regular golf balls? And we're going to find that out. So what I did is, in all my testing, I hit 6 golf balls. I hit 3 range balls, and then I hit 3 of the regular golf balls. It could be anything from one of the Srixons to a Callaway Chrome Soft XLS, a Super Soft, a Wilson Duo. There's all kinds that are in there, okay? And I was indiscriminate amongst all of them, and you'll see. And so now we get to see how the ACCRA performs, what the differences in weights are, and what the differences in golf balls are. So let's go find that out. Okay, guys and gals, this is the ACCRA shaft test. And it's not to say that one's good, bad, or in between. It's just a matter to see, to show everybody that in the same model, different weights do different things, because different weights mean different flexes, and different weights and different flexes give you different results. So if we look at, here's the first one. I started at 50, and they go 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and 110, and then there was these constant weights, which is a different class, and so we see how they work as well. So we're going to go through these very, very quickly just to show you their flights, and then we'll show you how they panned out. So here's the 50. All right, nice and tight up there, except for the one that got wayward left on me. And then there's 60. 60 is kind of a dispersion issue, right? Then 70. 70 tightened right up, not too bad whatsoever. That felt pretty good, actually. Landed in a pretty tight circle. And then 80. 80 wasn't too bad, except for one shot there. Getting wayward. Well, maybe 2 now. Okay. 90. 90 went pretty far as consistency goes. Left to right was a little open, but not too bad. If you look, there's pretty much making a line. 100. 100's going up there. There seems to be 2 shot categories. Some over to the right, some over to the left. 110. 110 got a really high one out there. I like this, and that was the 192, 194 shot you're seeing. It's coming in from outer space. That was a well-struck shot. That was not too bad of a pattern, except for the wayward one there. All right, so now into the constant weight shafts. This is a 75 gram. Again, down the middle a little bit with a wayward shot. Now this was the first one I actually predominantly faded. So that was the difference. I thought, well, let's see what's going on here. Here's 95. And for the most part, not too bad. It just goes right out. Right, and that's a nice grouping. I seem to have one grouping with one wayward one. All right, one last one, 115. That looks like it's taken off pretty tight. And it does look like it has a pretty good look. Now, if I haven't told you already once before, each one of these has 6 shots. And of these 6 shots, the first 3 are the range balls, and the second 3 are regular golf balls, anywhere from Chrome Soft, Super Soft, Srixon balls, but they're just upper tier golf balls that will get out there. And that's really what, it was a tale of 2 setups, and that's another thing I wanted to bring in for the video, was that to give you an idea of the difference between the 2. So let's see how they stacked up. Alrighty, so here's how they ended up working out as far as total distance goes. Now, when we look at total distance, we have to take into a couple of categories. One is club head speed. Was I really, really slow or really, really fast on any one of them? And it looks like 86 is my low, with 88.4 being the high. So about 2.5 miles an hour. So if anything, that's about a 4 mile an hour swing, or a 4 yard, 4.5 yard, maybe, yeah, about 4.5 yard swing in total distance, everything created equal. So even if I was to add 4 yards, I'd make it 282. That would only put this one right up in here into the top. Now this guy, this one is 87. And there's a lot of 87s in there as well, so I'm not going to say this is too out of range. Now, the other part is how well did I hit that? And right in here, that's very, very consistent, honestly. I was fine in the middle of the club, and nothing is way off. In fact, the 100 and the 90 were probably the two, or the 70 and the 75 were the best struck, with the 90 and the 100 right after that. The spin rates were all pretty much about the same, as far as, giving me a number. And then the classifications were pretty much on the mark. My roll wasn't too bad. My negative angle of attack was pretty much on par with everything. So I would say that this is a pretty doggone good idea of what different shaft weights and different shaft flexes can do. So at the bottom of the pile, it was a 50-gram shaft. Now, very flexible, very light, not made for my swing. Doesn't mean it's not made for you, but it ended up being 9 yards short and 10 yards short, respectively. And the next one, I was 6 yards and 7 yards short, and it just didn't get out there for some reason. So we'll have to take a look at this and see how it pans out, because I got one more trick for you anyway. Then the 80, which was just a little bit better than the 115. The 60 was just a little bit better than that. The 95 came in above the other two because of where it landed. 110 after that, obviously you can see the 75. And then we start making headway with the 100, the 70, and the 90. 185 to 187, and all of a sudden on the average of 190. So what we're going to do is look and see which one was the longest, because in one of those there's probably a really, really long shot. And we're going to see from there. So let's see how they landed. Now, if we look at all of it together, that's what that looks like. Now, looks like a jumbled mess, but in reality, if you're hitting the exact same club, or the exact same iron and all that, that's not bad looking. So if we go back to here and we go to single club, so there's what 50 looks like. There's the one wayward shot. There's 60, kind of a big monster dispersion, not so good. Here's 70, again, nice tight with a wayward shot. 80, same thing can be said. 90, very, very tight, and we saw that by the flights, right? And again, here we are, nice and tight with one wayward shot. The 110 was also quite tight, not as tight as the 90, but I would say that comes in second place. Now, as far as consistency in distance, the 75 did pretty good. 95, nice and tight, and that's the constant weight shaft. And here at 115 was online all day, it's just up and down instead of side to side. So the question is, what's more important to you? Do you want to be the furthest guy on the field, or do you want to be the guy that's the most precise on the field, or a little bit of both? Yeah, we got to dig a little bit deeper now. Alrighty, so now what we got over here is as I said, we've had the first three were the range balls, which in normal would mean that those are the ones that did not go the furthest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the first three of each one. And see where the 70 came in there, and I had a 200-yard shot. We're going to go there, there, and there. And in the 60, I had a 200-yard shot. Look at that guy. In the 80, two consistent ones and one a little short, so there's the wayward one we saw. And here's these three. That was pretty consistent again. 100, we'll take out the first three. And that's what that looks like. Those are some pretty good numbers. And if you guys are watching the numbers I'm taking out, there's a pattern. And each one of those I was landing in the low 180s, going to the mid 180s, with a few that got into the high 180s. And then when I go to a regular golf ball, it's worth a 90s, right? And that's the difference between the golf ball, because the quality of strikes are actually pretty close. And there's the one wayward with that 95. Almost done, I promise you. There we go. So now all of them are there. Now before we see let's see how they landed. A little bit tighter now all of a sudden, isn't it? So let's do it again. There's the 50, nice and tight, however short. There's the 60, nice and tight, but very long. There's the 70, tighter still in the same area. 80, a little bit to the right, but not too bad. 90, tight, but a little, not as, from right to left, not front to back. 100, a little bit outside there. Ooh, the 110, extraordinarily tight. Look at that guy. 75, a little wide. Now we're inside 10 yards either way. It would be acceptable in my plan, but if you're looking to be the best on this is what we're looking for. 95, constant weight, 2 really good ones. There's the wayward guy, and then the 115. So now that we've seen all that, the consolidated view, a little bit tighter, right? Now let's see how we look. Did everything stay the same? What do you guys think? Oh, look at here. We have a bit of a change. So the 50 is still down at the bottom. Now look at all the numbers change. We have a dramatic change from 178, 182 to 194 to 197. So in the 3 shots with the 3 regular golf balls, all of a sudden life's a little different. Now there's a 100, a 60, and a 70 are out there, where the 90, the 80, and the 110 are just right behind them with 3 to 4 yards. And then what are we thinking here? 2 to 4 yards, 2 to 3 yards behind it total. And then there's a significant drop. There's a 3 to 5 yard drop, but the rollout's not there, and then the 50's just gone. Now, if we look at this, we see that there's a massive change in the smash factor. We start at the 135, and as we see, it kind of works its way up into the 140s. So we're doing pretty good. Now, all that stays the same in angle of attack. Spin rates are pretty much about the same, but the quality of hit changes. Now that is a story in and of itself, just showing you that the shaft actually does make a difference. That's what we're looking for, right? That's what we wanted to see. And more straights than fades, thank goodness, but that's where we're at. Now, one last thing to note is, if you look, the height, there was a tall one, there's a very tall one, and then right there in between 90 and 100. So it just depends on the weight and the flex and how you get through there. So if we wanted to see it now, there's the 50. There's the 60. There's the 70. Look at that guy. Nice and tight. There's 80. Looking pretty decent, just a little off to the right. Keep in mind that's a lefty, so that's a little bit to the inside. 90. A little wide but consistent. The 100-yard shot, or 100-gram shaft. 2 right down the middle, 1 a little wide. And the 110 looking real good. Then we get into the constant weight shafts. Little fade. 95. A little tighter. There we go. I'd play a fade if it looked like that all day. There we go. And last but not least, the 115. And punching it out there pretty doggone good. Okay. So there it is. So again, just another bit of information of what can happen. And it's not to say that one shaft is worse than the other. It's just to show you that there are differences. So when you go to your fitting, you know that you can get yourself a shaft that will work for you. It may not be the one that you're looking for, but certainly if you have enough combinations like we do, you should be able to find something. All right, let's go back. Whew. So it does make a difference, doesn't it? Right? So it was amazing how very, very close, how much weight those 3 shots from the regular golf balls, the range balls, made in the way that it was going on. And you got to see that certain weights, it's just not, yay, the lightest swung the fastest and the heaviest swung the slowest. In fact, it was almost counter that, right? So, and that's because of the way things feel to golfers. If they feel off, they're not going to give it their all or swing their best. That's just part of fitting. Did you get that? That's just part of fitting, okay? And that's the reason why we test weight, right? Everybody's worried about the swing. No, total weight and flex, total weight and flex. And you get in there, and so you got to see that, you know, middle of the road. Now, I was very consistent with the higher end, and I did hit some very long shots with the lower end, but what are you going to take? You're going to take stuff landing at 198, 199, 197, or you're going to take that one shot at 200, right? I know what I'm doing. And then do you want to hit it as far as you possibly want to, or do you want to hit it in a tight pattern, or both? And that's why you test. That's why you test for length. That's why you test for the flex. That's why you test for the weight. That's all those different things that we're doing. So, last bit of this, what did I think? I've been using the I series for basically ever. Since I've been working with ACCRA, and that's been for some time now. The I series is a wonderful graphite shaft. It is a well-made graphite shaft. The only thing I never had was the constant weight graphite shaft. Mostly because they were made in the taper tip fashion, right? And I wasn't using a lot of taper tip. Well, now I can with some of the 2 manufacturers I've picked up as late. So it kind of made sense to put that together. Now, did it change anything for me? Well, you know what? The funny part is I kind of think I hit them higher. At least it felt like I did. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but the 75, you would have thought I would really liked it since I did well with the 70, not so much. But the 95 was something else. And then the 115, although I didn't get it way out there, was way consistent. So I can see where this would fit in when I'm fitting certain golfers. And that was the idea. I did like the feel of them. There's a distinct different feel when you leave the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and then you go into the 90 and 100 because of that added reinforcement at the bottom. But, you know, if you're a late releaser, a pretty quick swing speed, or even just a late releaser, you very well may like the 90 or the 110 or the 100. But that's where you're going for the fitting, right? So the idea, so what did we find out? Well, we found out ACCRA's update was very, very good. We found out the golf ball does matter. We do know that weight and flex do matter when it comes into that. So hopefully, if you go to your fitting, ask those types of questions. You know, why weight, why flex, why this, because, and make sure that you're good with that particular answer. Again, this is that one. So we're gonna keep going with some of these other ones and keep testing so you guys get the idea of what's going on. If you got any questions, put them in the show notes below, right? Because we really want to make sure that you have the best fitting possible. You're the most educated golfer that's out there. And as always, let's see your scores go low.